The other thing I told someone in HR once that said, they're like, you can't fight for everyone all the time. And I go, no, you're wrong. Because I want these people who I work with to run through a wall for me. They have to know I'll run through it first, or sure as hell I'll run right behind them. And I think and that doesn't always work. That doesn't work for all people. There's no magic sauce that works for all people. I find that if people feel that, you get more from them, and then they find how to operate in their own way. And trust. I know my boss trusts me and will support me, whether he agrees with something I do or not. You have to instill that in the people you work with. They're like, you're free to make decisions. I support you. If something's wrong, we'll fix it.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff LaCosta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
Okay, everybody. I am personally very excited for this conversation because I truly fell in love with the two of you. And I want to be very specific saying the two of you because I also loved you singularly. But as a couple, you are like pure fire.
It's probably too many years working together. It's really
Sandra needs a moment because you used the word couple to describe us.
Wait,
I don't know if you have significant
we have to tell others about this. It's just too funny.
We have significant others that at least my wife knows Sandra pretty well, and I think they would find as much humor in that as we probably do.
Yes.
How long have you two worked together? So yeah, ground us in your relationship.
9 years.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
decade. Sandra, that means that 25% of your life you've known me.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Yeah.
You gotta be careful because in Feng Shui, 9 is a number for completion. So I hope that this conversation is not the one completing the relationship today.
Sandra, don't get fired, please. I'd miss you.
I'm trying not to, but I'm also trying to get fired. So we'll see how it works out.
There we go.
Kidding. I'm just kidding.
So for context for people listening, you know that we find guests all over the planet, or I would say guests find us because we are on this quest to identify these 99 humans that are remarkable leaders that they bring their humanity forward. And I met these two incredible humans, Sandra and Ryan in Washington. What was it? A couple of months ago now. Oh my God, time?
November. Yeah, November.
I bought actually a mug in Washington, so I'm honoring our event.
That's nice.
And the upcoming inauguration. It looks like an inauguration cup.
Oh my God!
No matter which side of the line you're on.
Yeah,
that's an inauguration cup.
I want to stay neutral. I am for greatness, abundance, money, whatever comes. And so, but what I want to say is this, Jeff, because you need to understand what really led me to invite these two wonderful people on the show. So here I am in the Google office talking to them. And you know that I'm a feminist. And then at one point, Ryan addresses Sandra. Do you want to say how you called her so it comes from you?
Well, I call Sandra a lot of things in public and private. I can't imagine what it was. But I do remember what I said to you, which was, don't tell her that. I don't need her ego inflating, which definitely drew your you were not happy with that, not understanding Sandra and I's relationship, that we can talk that way. But you're going to have to remind me because I don't remember what I called her.
There was somewhere in the conversation, the word lioness was used, which I absolutely loved. And I don't know, the dynamic between the two of you was simply fantastic. I hope that after today you design your own show, because you really need to continue share with everybody. Um, but you know, I don't know where to go next, because then we spoke about magic, we spoke about creativity, we spoke about leadership, and the two of you are simply fantastic. And so we are very thankful that you're with us today. And Jeff and I have been working together for many, many years now. And we are on this quest. We are actually one of the last humans, because we're going to stop at 99 and we are at 85 already.
Wow. 85 is a good number. It's a good number.
Totally. Almost as good as a decade of working together. So
Yep.
I'd love to start there. Can you bring us back to when you first met? How did your partnership actually begin?
Well, we started working on a client together. So we're in the ad agency. We work in an ad agency. He works at one, I work at another. It's a partnership between the two agencies. And there was this one client that we had in common. And so I think we had a meeting in Chicago. And then Ryan and I took, is that the L? What is the subway system over there?
Yep.
The L. We took the train. We took the L to wherever, the airport. I don't know. We took the L to try to get back to civilization from the office, and we got stuck in the L, and we were sitting just on the tracks sitting. And I was like, oh my God, now I have to make conversation with this guy. And so that's where it started. So needless to say, over the years, we've had lots of ups and downs. You know, client work can be exhausting. It can be exhilarating. And then you add to that the dynamic of two agencies trying to work together and make something of the work, right? And challenging each other. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, funny. I don't remember that either. I'm really starting to I did when you started saying it. It's interesting about Sandra and I is neither of us are ever at a loss for words. Typically, it's harder to get us to stop talking than start. But I know that I'm very quiet when I first meet people. You put me in a room with strangers, and I will go to the corner and not speak until someone speaks to me. And I think Sandra's that same way. I don't know if it's just that we're shy, like there's a little introversion to our extroversion, or if it's just like, we just don't want to talk to people. But it's interesting because when you first meet Sandra, and I think you both have seen this, is that she immediately shines because she is very smart and open about sharing her thoughts and strong-willed, which, you don't see a whole lot, unfortunately, in probably in all leadership, but definitely in this business you don't. And that always stood to me. She also has a New Yorker's vocabulary, we'll call that. And, to hear someone be unabashed about that and own it, I was just like, hell yeah. Like I'd get in a bar fight with her, and she'd be whooping me ass. So there certainly was that, but I also think to her point of our ups and downs, which the downs don't last very long, but we certainly have had some heated debates and disagreements, but I think through those comes a lot of respect. Like Sandra knows if she's frustrated or not frustrated, or she just has an idea that she wants to bounce off someone, that she can call me and I can do the same thing. And I will admit here in the open now for the world that I certainly probably had some missteps with talking to media vendors, without Sandra, which is like a big no-no. But, again, a lot of people just would get mad and not say anything. Sandra will come right to you and say, hey, like, you can't do that. We need to do it this way. So
I would say one thing, if you allow me, because what I'm witnessing here as a big L word next to it. So I'm not afraid of saying, I'm seeing a lot of love.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Friendship love, of course, not sex love.
No. Yeah.
No. Listen, Sandra and I will both admit this. Yes, we love each other, but in a friend way. If we were together for more than 6 hours in a day and 7 days in a row, one of us would murder the other one. So we're wired to work together, not be together. So we're not going to get weird about words.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So it seems like clearly over the 9 years that you've worked together, this has been a really fruitful partnership. Is there a time, like, let's start on the high, because I'm very curious to pick into a little bit of those challenging times. But can you remember a particular time where the partnership just was magic and you got incredible results, clients are happy? Maybe paint this picture for us in terms of how the two of you are able to really rock the jobs that you have.
I mean, I'll jump in first, Sandra.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'll forget this as we've already established if I don't. When we first started with the client that we work on, Sandra and her team, or it was probably Sandra, if I'm being honest, but we'll give credit to the full team at the time, basically wanted to change their entire model of how they went to market. And I mean, it was big. It was certainly big for the category they're in. I think it was just big for a brand just to make a total 180 change. But there was a very sound reason for it, which I always respected. Like, it's very bold to walk into a client that you just won, a major client, and say, hey, look, given the state of where you are, this is what you need to do. And it's based on, a lot of things. It's based on budget. It's based on the audience is changing. It also meant that the way that I had always done creative was going to be different. And I think it was new for both of us. But, and there were certainly bumps, like there's bumps in anything, not bad bumps, just bumps in doing it. But it worked. I mean, and it's worked for 10 years. And a lot of that goes back to a very bold move of, and I will say it, Sandra, because she has to be the one that goes in front of these very important people and says, what you've been doing is wrong. You need to do this. And then they trusted us and we did it. And I think that's been our biggest success, which is why 10 years now later, we're still here with them. Sandra, I don't know if you have a different one, but that's kind of been the overarching thing for me.
Yeah, there's been a lot. I do think that was the thing that started us right on the road to greatness, particularly with this client, because that basically laid the groundwork for where we are today, right? Like, we built so much trust just in our first year or two. And I know we laid out a roadmap for going from mostly TV to mostly digital because we didn't have any assets yet, right? So we had no digital assets. We had to get them before we could start totally shifting over. And then Ryan's team was incredible in figuring out how to basically reinvent the way that this client went to market from a messaging standpoint and the assets that they were building. And the clients that we work with are a bit old school. I think it's safe to say. I don't think that that's negative. I think there's definitely benefits to that, but I do think it requires a lot of education. We're very lucky though, that these are clients that love education. They're smart, and they love to learn. So we benefited from that. And I think the collaboration of the two agencies together, and particularly Ryan's team and my team, in helping to, educate in a way that they could understand. Because a lot of the stuff that we do in this business, in advertising, it's a lot of marketing speak. And they didn't necessarily speak that way. So we had to make it like a normal person would understand, make it like a 5-year-old would understand. And they totally trusted us with that.
By the way, I think we can say it's the United States Navy. I mean, I had their names in Google, and Google has had us speak about it. So, I mean, I think that goes to you're talking about a large government client. You're talking about people who have a very important job, and doing things differently is a big change for them.
So one thing you said, Ryan, about Sandra that is really making me think is this idea that you have the superpower, Sandra, that you can go to a client, a very important client, and tell them straight in the face what's working and what's not working. So this concept of trust and feedback and all of that. I would expect that more people would do that, because otherwise, what are we even doing in a sales world? But somehow it's not that way. So can you unpack for us, what does that mean? How do you do it? What about you allows you to have the courage and even the manners to go and tell a client, hey, whatever you're doing is crap, we got to change it, and have their buy into your actions?
I don't know what it is about me. I just know that from a very young age of being in this business, I was always around people that always had a point of view on things. You know, it's cold outside. What's your point of view? You know, just a point of view on everything. So I feel like I've been in a lot of situations where I've been in the hot seat and someone has asked me a hard question and I failed, right? So I've said, I don't know. And then it sort of hardened me, right? And got me to a point where I need to start really thinking about all the things that we're working on, big picture, and understanding what are the potential pitfalls, the challenges, how do I think about it? I might not be right. You know, I have point of views all the time and Ryan's like, no, but at least I have a point of view. And it's something that we talk about at the agency a lot. Like they're not hiring us for our prowess with using Excel and PowerPoint and putting together presentations. No. They hire us for our thinking. It's this. It's not all the other stuff. So, you know, I think it's important to have a point of view on things. You know, I think it's important to not just have that point of view, but also have the guts to say something. You know, if you see something, say something. You know, they say that at the airport, they say that on the Long Island Railroad, they say it everywhere. But it's true, because think about how many times you've seen something and have not said something, and then you're kicking yourself like for days and months. And I don't have time for that. I am I'm very focused on efficiency, and I cannot deal with missing opportunities and chances to say something when I truly believe in something.
Maybe Sandra doesn't know this about like herself. I think she does. It's effective because she's a human. She's just real. Like, you know where you stand with Sandra. You know, there's no smoke and mirrors, no bullshit. It's there. And I think that in all walks of life, but definitely in this business, that's rare. Sad as that is to say. And so I think people are attracted to that. And look, she'll tell you it doesn't always work. There's been a lot of times clients, not even the ones I work with Sandra on, we talk about other clients that, you know, she'll give her opinion. You're like, okay, we appreciate that, but we're still going to do this thing. So it doesn't always work. If it always worked, it would be, you know, she'd be writing books about it. But I think, you know, like just being a human, the same way you would be with your friends, maybe dialed back a little bit if you're Sandra, you know, and speaking to people, I think people are attracted to that. You know, because they know they can believe you, you know,
right. It is, you get what you see is what you get. There's no BS with it. So, you know, and I have a client, you know who it is, Ryan, that will call me up and be like, all right, so no BS with this. And I'm like, come on, you know, there's no BS with this. So I'll just tell you what I really think.
I love that.
It's like, off the record, just tell me. And I'm like, this is what it is. So.
You both have mentioned a couple of times, you know, some of the challenges, some of the no's, some of the things that haven't, you know, always gone well. And I think the dynamic that you're working within is fascinating in and of itself, right? It's two agencies, different teams, different skill sets, different personalities within those teams that have to collaborate on one goal. And if you take the Navy example, it happens to be a little bit of a risk, right? Like, we're going to take a risk and we're going to try something different and pitch this, even though we know if we pitched this, it'd be a very easy yes and very similar to what they're used to doing. So how does that work? How do you actually design that partnership? Ryan, what are you doing with your team to kind of get everybody on board? Sandra, what are you doing with yours? And what is that actual dynamic? Because even if folks who are listening are not within different companies, maybe collaborating like it is almost with two different agencies, honestly, we're all working cross-functionally. We're all working with lots of people with lots of different skills. So I think it you know, it resonates.
I don't think, I mean, maybe in the beginning it was 7 agencies, you know, underneath WPP working together. And I don't know if this happened naturally or just because it was the right mix of people, and the people who weren't the right mix aren't part of it anymore. I think we just kind of went to the side. We just became one team. I mean, even our I would say our entire team now, but our leadership group, we're a family, bit dysfunctional at times, but if you're not going to be honest in this group, you just, and you're not going to pull your weight, you're not going to make it. And
Did
again,
anybody say that? Like, we're going to be one team, or did it just happen? I'm just
well,
curious.
yeah, I think it was said in the beginning, but
Yeah.
it's like, again, I think let's just talk about 5 years into it, not even talk about 10. I think at 5 years into it, a lot of people had come and gone that just couldn't thrive in that environment, which is fine. That's fine. I think one thing it takes.
And let's say, Ryan, why they couldn't thrive. Because I mean, I feel that's an element worth highlighting. Like why people fail in these environments.
I think this one's a little different, right? I believe when you're working, when you put a year working on the Navy, you come away with an understanding that you are doing something that truly has an effect on the world. It does have a higher purpose. And the ones of us that do this now, we believe if you got to wake up every single day and think about that. And so I think in this situation, hard work and dedication is what begets success. If with this group, if you're not willing to check your ego and work together and support each other, you're not going to make it. Now, I think some of those tenets carry across all teams, right? Like you have to have an ego to be successful at something. It's how do you flex that ego that makes you liked or unliked, or team player or not, right? You got to be able to stand on your feet and say, I believe we need to do this, and then listen. But then that's where you got to step back and listen to everybody else. And so, like I say in this team and other teams, like, look, I'm all about erasing swim lanes, but when the race starts, stay in your lane because we're going to get disqualified. You can't be running into me when I'm trying to Michael Phelps this thing. So, and I think that's an ego thing. Everyone else has to understand I say this to Sandra all the time. Look, Sandra, I think if I were you, I would do this, but I don't know a damn thing about like the granularity of what you do. And I respect you, but if it was me, I'd do it this way. That's me getting into her swim lane and then getting back out. And I think, ego's we're just not in that world anymore. Where you're just going to succeed being at a full throttle ego all the time. I also think the other thing too, which goes back to what I was saying, is that humanity of being a human. And even if you've known someone for 2 weeks or 10 years, you got to pay attention to other people and try to figure out what motivates them and where they are. You have bad days. You got to step back. You got to help them in different ways. Use the L word. That doesn't come because we've worked together on a piece of business for 10 years. Right. It comes because we both trust each other and we trust other people on our team who we'd say the same things about. And it's human first and then, work second.
Yeah.
You either have that or you don't, I really think. Yeah.
Ryan, I remember a time when we had a not so good thing that turned into a good thing. I remember when we were doing the rebrand, it was like 17, 18. And you had a very specific way that you wanted media to be carried out.
Yeah.
Out of home.
Sure.
And I remember you saying it. And I was like, oh God, we can't do that. I'm like, we can't buy media the way that you're saying. So I called up the guy running the entire account and I said, listen, I go, this is what Ryan just asked me for. I'm like, I don't think it makes any sense. I'm like, there's something there, but I don't think it makes any sense because I don't think we can actually execute what he's saying. I'm like, we could do a variation of that. He basically wanted to buy wild postings. I was like, we can't buy wild postings in that market. We can't do it. So we could do other things. So he said to me, all right, well, this is Ryan. Ryan is doing what he thinks makes the most sense for creative. He goes, but if it's not something that can be done in media, then do what you think makes the most sense. Right. And so that's what we did. Then we came up with this amazing out of home plan, which was like a half of a takeover of a city. And he loved it. It was exactly what he needed. But like, that's part of it, right? Is understanding what are his needs, right? And how can I sort of bridge the gap of reality of what can be done versus what it is that he was looking to do and looking to achieve, and how do we make that a reality? So
Yeah, I would also say, because I think I've evolved too, right? I don't say things that I want to do anymore. I just ask questions over around it. Like, hey, what if we painted the moon? And then, that's kind of how Sandra and I work together. Is we, then right, it doesn't feel like a demand or a,
yeah. But at that time it was still new, and I was like, I don't even know how to deal with this guy. Like, what he's asking me to do is not even
my wife says that every day, and we've been married 20 years. So
yeah, there you go.
You know what's interesting, that I kind of want to go in there, and Jeff, I can see you want to ask a question as well, but I see the two of you and I'm like, you're like so irreplaceable. Like, the relationship between the two of you, it's so wonderful that it's almost scary because it's like such a powerful combo. And I'm wondering, how are you able to translate all of these to the people that you lead? Because both of you have very large team, both of you have very demanding jobs, and you can't possibly do it alone. So I get it that, you are so in tandem, but how do you translate this in your teams so that they embody those same behaviors?
I don't know that I would want my teams to embody the same behaviors. I think one thing is, like, again, you've got to lead and work with authenticity. There's someone on my team that promoted from within, and I think they kind of were like, okay, I've seen him do this, let me try this, and it didn't work. I'm like, it's not your style. That's not you. You can't do it that way. Find the way that works for you. And the respect will come. And when leading teams, and I think I told you this the first time, there's two things. Like, I hate to say that I lead teams, and I hate to say that, and I do not say that people report to me. Yes, there's a structure. Yes, we do things within this org chart, but we have to operate as a group. We are a group. And of course, for groups to be successful, there has to be someone that will make a decision at some point. But, for people to feel that they can speak up within a group setting. And then the other thing, I told someone in HR once that said, they're like, you can't fight for everyone all the time. And I go, no, you're wrong, because I want these people who I work with to run through a wall for me. They have to know I'll run through it first, or sure as hell I'll run right behind them. And I think and that doesn't always work. That doesn't work for all people. There's no magic sauce that works for all people. I find that if people feel that, you get more from them, and then they find how to operate in their own way. And trust. I know my boss trusts me and will support me, whether he agrees with something I do or not. You have to instill that in the people you work with. They're like, you're free to make decisions. I support you. If something's wrong, we'll fix it. And I think with our leadership group, by the way, you're just meeting Sandra and I. I'm thinking in my head of two other people that would have made this a party, because we're all very close. We've been, several of us been together almost 10 years. Sandra and I have worked together the longest. I guess we've survived the longest, Sandra. But, and again, I think it's because these same things that we're talking about bleed into those relationships as well. But that's kind of how I see it. I think you have to learn how to move through your career, be it as a front line or as a leader, in your authentic style. And I think you're able to do that when you know that the people around you, not just above you, around you, trust you, and they'll have your back. And like, I know that about Sandra. Didn't happen day two. Certainly didn't happen on the subway train that day when she didn't want to talk to me. But, it comes over time that someone's there and has your back. And so that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. I mean, I just encourage my people, like, similar to Ryan, to have independent thought. I do not want a bunch of lemmings. I do not want a bunch of people that are all saying and doing the same thing. They need to have their own thoughts. I encourage participation and speaking up. Some people are better at it than others. That's not always everyone's strength. And I I really would never want somebody like me working for me. I don't know if I would be able to handle that. It would be a lot. So Ryan's enough. If I only have him 1 or 2 hours a day, that's great. But having somebody 8 to 10 hours a day that works for me, no, not like me. No.
So I'm curious how close you try to get your teams to each other. Like, are you trying to emulate similar relationships? It doesn't sound like it, which is interesting because I don't know if this analogy will work, but I guess I would have guessed it would be like a zipper, right? Like maybe you're the first part, but then you're going to try and get your teams to come close together. And now after hearing you, I'm imagining more like a knot where you keep things tied together. But then your teams, you're encouraging that independent thinking, that focus on what matters, not trying to bring everybody together to have some similar relationship. Does that track for you, or how do you see it?
It does for me now. I mean, I think in the time we've had this business, there was a time where like we worked like maybe I'm going to make these numbers up, maybe 10 people at Sandra's group and 10 people in this group worked more together. Right now, we really have close contact with 2 people, Sandra and one other person on her team. And I'm in close contact, where we're talking every week. It's just kind of the nature of, I think, how the business has become that.
Yeah.
But, there have been, God, 10 years is a long time. There have been people on both of our teams that have not, kind of worked in a zipper. We didn't want it to be a knot. They almost, or maybe better, they just made a kink in the zipper. And Sandra and I have, had some great conversations about that. But, I think we've learned through those on then how to coach our people to be better team players or more successful together. And that hasn't always worked either, by the way. But I guess, now it probably is more of a knot, maybe a double knot, because I think we have a couple layers, and then it's the shoestrings going everywhere. But
we can tear the analogy apart.
We can. I like it, actually.
Yeah, I think Ryan and I have both had issues with a team member or two over the years on each of our teams, and have expressed that, and it wasn't always well received. But again, due to the mutual respect and the admiration, and honestly, at the end of the day, needing to get the job done, we're like, we need to overcome this. Like, no one's going to get rid of either one of us. So, we need
you mean if you go together?
Yeah, I mean it's a package deal. So we should just start our own agency. We could just do that.
I mean, I'm actually hoping when we go, it's going into retirement. We stick with this until retirement, which I've been really honest and open about. So
into the universe. I have a very tough question for the two of you. I feel that we created kind of a safe space where I can ask it, but it's a very emotional question. So we'll see where we go with that. So this love is absolutely beautiful. I love that everyone has their own opinion. I love that everyone has a POV. There's so much respect and people leading and all of that. I'm very big in manifesting, obviously. So, let's say that this hypothesis that we're going to make now is just for an hypothesis. But what could be one thing that, if would happen, would break your relationship? Like kind of a deal breaker that you would be like, oh gosh, if Ryan would have to do this, I'm done. And you, Ryan, like, if Sandra would have to do this to me, I'm done.
I bet we have the same answer, so I'm gonna let Sandra go first.
I don't know.
I know. I think if we truly broke trust. So there are things that we have established as.
Hey, but give me an example, because it's very generic.
If I ask Sandra something like, Sandra, I want to run this radio commercial on blank channel, and she said, we can't do that. Let's just say that's her answer. And I did not debate her. I just said, okay. And then I went to that partner, that media partner, on my own and said, hey, I want to run this radio thing. I want to do it this way. Sandra's saying we can't. Can we? And then they say yes. And then I go back to her and say, hey, I went to them. They say we can do it. That is a clear violation of trust. But
however, allow me to interrupt you. what bring you to go to the channel and verify? That means you
Yeah.
didn't trust the response in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would. No, I think it would. It's still a little generic. It would not mean. It would either mean I didn't trust her, or I think in the case of Sandra, I think it would mean that I didn't agree with her, because I do trust her. So I can't. There's nothing I think she could tell me right now that. I mean, she told me she had a boa constrictor that escaped her house, and I believed her, which was true. So
It was a
there's
true
very
story.
little she could
Not
tell
a book constrictor.
What's going on over there?
It's still in here somewhere. I don't know.
There's
where it
very
is.
little. I don't think there's anything Sandra could say that I'd be like, no. So I think it would be more that I didn't trust her decision or her instinct. And for me, I think that would not be positive. I mean,
Yeah.
look, when you say that we've had downs, I mean, Sandra and I have raised our voices at each other. We are both very emotional people. We're both very strong-willed, and we're both very open.
Wait, you
I mean,
screamed at each other?
Yeah.
I don't know if I got something tells me Sandra's got another level of screaming than what I saw.
Oh yeah.
But,
That's
I
true.
mean, it was a
She's Italian, Ryan. I mean, that's normal. That's not part of being emotional. It's
It
just
was-
our culture.
this was definitely don't ever speak to me again. You're probably telling your husband what a jerk I am for a PC word. I'm telling my wife that I don't agree with what you just did. Then we yell about it the next day. And it took someone else kind of getting in between and going, guys, we're adults here. And then we both sit like this. You know. But I mean, that was 2 years ago when that was the big one. There's been a couple, like,
I don't even remember what that was about.
it was about a person on my team who did something you didn't.
I
did
knew
got
that.
defensive about you telling me.
Yeah. I know.
You ganged up on me a
I
little
wanted
bit.
you to give feedback. You wouldn't give feedback. I'm like, I'll give feedback myself. Yeah, that was that.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, I can't think of anything that he could do that would get us to a place. Like, I feel like there's been too much that has gone on.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like there's been way too much. I mean, we've had clients that have cycled through, right? And we've had to learn new ways of working with clients, you know, because they rotate like every 3 years. We've had lots of new management on the client side as well, as just the regular everyday clients. We've had new leadership at our agencies. So, you know, there's been a lot of people putting their hands in a lot of our work and asking a lot of questions and pushing a lot of ideas of their own. Meanwhile, we've been in this for years, right? And we've done a lot of the thinking and a lot of the work and a lot of the legwork, and now they just come in with their fresh ideas, and we're like, we've actually considered this, but you know what? Because you're important, we will do the due diligence, and we'll show you all the reasons why this does or doesn't make sense. So, I feel like we've been through quite a bit.
And what's funny and I think very timely is I don't know that Sandra and I haven't seen Sandra since before the holidays, and we haven't spoken since before the holidays. I think yesterday with the email reminding us this was the first time. And then this morning she texted me something that really had nothing to do with work, but it was funny. And she knew that I would find humor in an ad to the humor. And we had a 30-minute back and forth text exchange that, you know, it's probably not work stuff, but it's like, again, that's the trust piece. It's like, I'm in my head. I'm like, okay, I need to be a smart ass. Who can I be Sandra. And I can send her a note on, you know, text or something. And she feels that same way. So it's like, you know, it's just kind of there. Right.
Yep.
When you have those moments that are challenging, how much do you expose them to your team? Because I feel like you're kind of the dream partnership, right? In terms of, this is great. You see the value. There's all this experience. I mean, there's just so much work already done because of your familiarity with each other. And yet there's these moments that so many partnerships never get beyond. They have a blow up and that's the end of it. And they go their separate ways. You have consistently overcome challenges. And I'm curious, do you do that privately between the two of you? Do you share with your team? How much of you know, the curtain do you pull back for them?
I would say 90% of my team doesn't ever find out. There's probably one person. I would say our leadership team across the two agencies on this account, those are the people that hear about it.
Mm.
Right. And even some of them we don't even tell. Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty open. I mean, there are some things it's like, okay, I'm not going to share this because this is going to just stir things up,
Right.
and it doesn't need to. But I definitely think that our leaders that are, our trusted people within our teams, they know most things.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's important. Like the stirring up, like I am not one for drama, and we've had our fair share of drama on this collective team. And I think it's super important to try and keep things chill, because introducing drama onto a team that's the size it's very hard to come back from.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to control. And so as a matter of fact, the guy that leads everything, he's like, he came across something one day and he goes, is someone spreading a rumor? I was like, no, that was actually me just accidentally saying something to someone, and I didn't know that it was a secret, and it was not meant to be, a gossipy thing. It was meant to, I slipped and I was like, oh, so-and-so's coming back. And they were like, what? So I got into trouble for that, but
we don't get into trouble.
Yeah, whatever.
The
I mean, I owned up to it.
Yeah.
When I mentioned 4 people, he's one of the 4. He is completely wired differently than Sandra and I. But
oh my gosh, I don't know how we get along with him, or actually how he gets along with us. This is what I should say.
It's entertainment. Probably.
He's much more mild mannered than us.
I would stay with you the whole day. So, just so you know, I want to be on a dinner with you all, and maybe we fly Jeff as well, or we all fly to Atlanta. I don't know. We find a solution. But as we approach the end of this episode, Jeff and I always ask a question. And by the way, I want to see the boa constrictor after this. You're not gonna run away with this.
It's
lost it
somewhere in the house. I don't know where it is.
No, it literally is lost.
You
It
can
escaped.
free it? Like the animal goes around?
No. It's lost. We don't know where it is.
You don't have like dogs or babies around, do you?
I have a dog, but like
No, neither does the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, the boa escaped. So there was a snake that escaped.
Yeah, it's now the Long Island boa. It's creeping all over Long Island, eating.
Articles all about it. It's rampage.
Well,
it's been a couple of years. He's probably dead in the wall somewhere. I don't know.
Or
Oh,
50 feet long
Yeah,
now.
the house is really old. So
Listen, I'm waiting for the news story, and I can die a happy man when I see boa constrictor found in Long Island neighborhood.
Yeah. It's not a python, it's a boa.
Well, for sure, you're not going to have any rats or mice or things like that. So maybe if you notice that there wasn't any animals, the boa is eating them.
Maybe.
My
Could
God.
be. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I just
Okay.
thought I knew a lot about Sandra. At that point, I'd met her daughter, and we'd gone to an event together. Then one day they dropped this boa constrictor thing on me. I was like, what? Just again, it's unraveling the onion of a human, as you get to know.
That's for sure. I feel that like every day I'm finding new elements, because we did find several elements last time we spoke. This makes you way more interesting. I love it. But anyway, the last question that we always ask is this, which is, what's your word of advice for people listening? If you were like to say, hey, out of this conversation, this is the one thing I want you to take away from us, what that is.
Well, I always say, always have a point of view.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to share it. Don't be afraid to voice your opinion. But when you have a POV, have stats to back it up. Don't just, willy-nilly come along and say a bunch of stuff and expect people to listen if you don't have the stats to back it up. I think also just be true to who you are. Sometimes that means that you can be a version of yourself pulled back a little bit, right? In the workplace, because I'm not my real self at work. I'm pretty close, but there's elements of me that I don't bring to the office. But I did get that advice from a mentor many years ago, that I was not being my true self, and that if I was, I would be much more successful. And so I took that advice. Yeah.
I think it's moving with empathy. I think, and again, I've worked in advertising for quite some time. I think advertising is a little bit more open and less stringent probably than other careers. Maybe this doesn't work if you're a lawyer. I don't know. But I think I don't think it's just leading with empathy. It's moving with empathy. It's being empathetic to the people that you work with. And Sandra said it, be the true self that you can be without stirring up HR. The board gets some advice and then they get, in a little bit of trouble. But yeah, I mean, it's like we just need, and I think human connection now more than ever. Why should we not be building relationships with the people we spend 50 hours a week with?
Thus, this podcast exists. We found COVID really stripped away a lot of that human connection piece, and we're left with just resume bullets, impact, all of this. Like,
Yeah.
hell, who are the people behind all of this stuff?
Right. Yeah. So,
well, huge thank you both for spending the time with us. This has been an amazing conversation. Where can folks find you? If you want them to find you, if they want to connect, where can they connect with you?
I don't know. On my LinkedIn, I know Ryan has a website. I'm not that fan. I know. We totally stalked it one day. I was like, oh my God, Pete, Ryan has a website. And we went to it and we were looking at it. He's like, this is really good. I'm like, I know.
I'm going right now to see.
Well, it's kind of creepy that like you stalked me on there, but I'm a creative. I mean, that's our cachet in this business is our portfolios. It's pretty shallow, but I mean, it is kind of how it is. Yeah, I would say LinkedIn. You can probably also find Sandra at the local reptile store in Long Island. Checking out the iguanas.
Or she's on the blacklist now. They won't sell her another.
I can deal with magic, candles, spells, whatever you want me, but I cannot deal with reptiles, Sandra.
I love them.
Snakes aren't snakes and like Wiccan, like kind of, or the occult, like, or is that just like a weird Southern Baptist snake church type thing?
That's it.
I got you. Okay.
I don't know.
That's not what Nadia's into though.
No snakes, no vampires. Maybe I don't know.
See, I'm not into vampires. It's a hard no.
We should do another podcast. What are we into and what are we not? Well, yeah, maybe we shouldn't.
Like, no, you're giving me ideas. I think the two of you should launch a podcast, like seriously yourself, because many people would listen to you. We didn't even dwell into things like AI. I know the two of you has very strong POVs on AI, which we discussed in Washington. So maybe when Jeff and I are done with 99, we're gonna create a new one. Who knows?
Where are they now? Episode 85.
85.
This will be when we're AI. Like this will be in a couple of years. It won't even be us. I'll just send my AI bot to do this podcast for me.
Well, just so you know, and this is the last thing I'll say, there's a guy at WPP. His name is Daniel Holm, which I hope you will connect with him. He's building sentient robots. We had breakfast on Tuesday before WP Converge, and the conversation was absolutely fascinating. I think I'm going to try to have him on the show, Jeff, because he's just amazing.
That's fascinating.
So maybe we're going to build a small sentient version of ourselves. Why not?
I don't know.
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
One Jeff is enough. I don't think I need another like little mini me running around.
Yeah, I think that my time in this business will be pretty much wrapped up by the time iRobot really is we're living in it. So I'm okay with that. God bless advertising if robots are doing it. So.
Oh my God. And with this, I think we thank you for being with us. It's been such a pleasure. And I hope we can talk soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my God. I'm obsessed with this too, Jeff.
So fun. I love just how familiar, connected, and they're getting shit done. They're having a huge impact, a lot of which is based on their relationship.
They are amazing. And I hope that you can meet them in person one time, because also their presence, their physical presence is very magnetic. Like you just want to be with them. They're fantastic. I feel so privileged.
It's awesome. I love when we do these little different episodes, right? We have two people who work together. What's that like?
I cannot see them interviewing only one of them, like they are amazing individually also, but their combo is just so powerful.
Yeah. That I think is what I'm taking away from the conversation is There's that quote, greatness is in the agency of others, which I love because I think that's so true. Like, you can really only be okay on your own, but with others, you can be really, truly great. And you can feel the respect in their relationship. And they were both speaking about, I think, the same thing with different language, like bring a perspective. Oh, you have an ego, or, a lot of that was very similar, but I appreciated the have a perspective, have an ego. Like, that's driving you towards greatness. And the addition that made it beyond maybe cliche advice was, and then respect and watch and listen the other swim lanes, the other people, the other things going on around you. You can't just be a empty space at the table, but you also can't be standing on the table dancing when you're trying to have a meeting with a bunch of people. Like, that's not how teams work either. And that balance is clearly what they've been able to strike, but that's a tough balance, actually, because either it's hard to have a perspective, what do I even think, and then how do I say it? Or having a perspective comes a little too naturally and you're dominating the space and it's hard for anybody else to share their own.
I love that this is your reflection and takeaway, because it was so evident and so powerful. I mean, I couldn't stop taking notes because literally every moment I was like, oh, I was having those light bulbs. I was like, oh my God, that's true. I want to remember this. I want to remember this. I mean, the swim lane sentence was so powerful. It was like, I'm all for erasing swim lanes, but when the race starts, you have to stay in your lane. Otherwise we get disqualified. I mean, that gotta be
That's
a
great.
paragraph in our book. It was so beautiful. I have to say that the whole conversation about being yourself, not being yourself, definitely also for me was a thing, because as you know, I went through that dilemma myself for many years, trying to be a washed up version of what I was, and then only by bringing my full self forward, that was the key. But it's true what Sandra said when someone said, well, maybe you're gonna tone it down according to your audience, right? And make it a little bit more adaptable. I do say that what Ryan says about moving with empathy, not only it literally underlined, it said not only leading with empathy, but moving with empathy. It's a bit of a new concept. I think that from many of our guests, we heard a lot about trust, we've heard a lot about empathy, but moving with empathy, in my opinion, carries a very different and subtle meaning, because you move with empathy with everybody, not only for the people that are reporting to you or the people that are in your managing up lane. You move with empathy as an individual. Like, I do believe that real secret in corporations to get transformed, and also in society, would be if more of us would conduct themselves with empathy at any moment in time.
Mm.
So to make that real, that also means you move with empathy if you meet with the barista at the coffee shop. You move with empathy with, I don't know, the waiter in a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, all those
Yeah.
things that really make you a great human in the end.
Yeah. And I love that because you could see how they both have empathy and they both have incredibly different styles. Like, there was that moment of, how much do you share? And Sandra's like, oh, I'm pretty tight-lipped. I don't want to cause drama. And Ryan goes, I'm pretty open book. And you could see in Sandra's face, like, oh, okay, that's a different approach. Like, there was surprise, I think. And that was cool because there's all these concepts about what does it mean to be a human leader that apply, like empathy, but don't end up making you a carbon copy of everybody else. You can be so many different versions and still practice this human leadership.
Absolutely. Jeff, I missed you this holidays. I was really looking forward to this conversation. Such a great way to kick off this year. And believe it or not, we have 92 humans in
Wow.
pipeline. So this is becoming, this project is coming to fruition very, very soon. This is so exciting. Everybody, I hope you continue to follow our stories, because our book will be out. So we will make sure to send you emails for pre ordering. This is all happening in real time. And I'm so grateful to you, Jeff, today. This was amazing.
Absolutely. It was so good to see you. And thanks everybody for listening. Please give us a rating on Spotify or iTunes and join us next time for another 99 Humans.
Amazing. Have a great day. Bye.